Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. I am your host and your guide for the next 2 hours as we spend this time together. I have everything under control now, I think. I think the volume was a little bit high. Every Sunday night we go through this routine. It's just one of the things that we have to do. I don't know what it is about setting up and rehearsing kind of a thing, but it's never quite the same when I get around to it. It is the 20th of September. We're here together for the next 2 hours as we do every Sunday night from 8 until 10 p.m. As I said to you, I'm Warren Sprouse. I'm your host and your guide here on the Bible Forum. I noticed that we had some folks who tuned in a little bit early. I read somewhere that when you do these kinds of things, you should go on the air early. I turned the volume off. You didn't need to hear me coughing and sneezing. So that folks know that you're really there and things are going to happen. And this is one of the few nights that I've been able to do that. Usually when I look up at the clock, it's 8 o'clock and I got to stop what I'm doing and fix everything and make it work whether I like it or not. Today was a little better. So we'll get that down pat one of these days. For those of you who are here, you know where the website is because you managed to get there. It's thebibleforum.net. But you also know about all the other websites, the tribiblicalcounseling.net and the viewfromzoar.com, livinggodly.net. Soon to come is Bible Institute of Charleston. .org. I have the artwork. I have plans this week to get a banner made up like the one that's behind me that actually it's got a picture of Charleston. It's really a pretty image. Says Bible Institute of Charleston. I want to get that made up. I'll put that behind me. I'll be able to do the introductory video. We'll post that on both websites, the Bible Institute website when it comes along and the Bible Forum website. And then we'll start taking names, as they say. If you are interested in the Bible Institute courses, send me an email. Tell me that. I'll set those aside. When the time comes, you'll be the first ones to get notification. It will be strictly audio, video. I will send you the YouTube each week. You'll do the work. Next week you'll get another one. We'll work through that. It could be 5 weeks, could be 7 or 8 weeks. It depends on the subject matter. We are working through the major doctrines of the Bible. There are 10 of them. They're going to be fascinating. I'm enjoying it. I don't know about anybody else. The cost is going to be $125 per course, plus a $25 registration fee. You can use PayPal, you can write a check. All of that will be on the website when it comes up. And we'll take a couple of years to go through this. We'll try to do about 5 of these a year and take 2 years to make that happen. When we get to the end of it, then we'll start looking at some of the other doctrines, some of the other issues, stuff that is important, critical, necessary if you're going to live this life. It's just a fascinating thing to me when I hear people tell me about their churches and they're not talking about learning anything. They're just happy with the music, or they're happy with the preaching, the lesson, the teaching. They're learning so much about themselves and about life and that sort of thing. Haven't got the slightest idea what I mean when I'm talking about an anthropomorphism, a biblical concept that is so important. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, an issue I didn't get to last week. Relative to pastors, so many of these pastors don't know what's going on. So many others have changed the doctrines to make them fit what they want to believe or what makes them feel comfortable. I don't know. It's just a very strange time. And I feel like a person out of time. Just this morning in our church, the pastor asked a question of the congregation about a book. You know, when was that book written? Was that, and he said, I'm thinking it was written in the 60s or the 70s. And about 4 or 5 of us said 60s. We read the book, but not everybody's read the book. And it's just like, that was how long ago? 50 years ago? Yeah, that's a long time. Anyway, we do have a ministry to pastors. I sent out a email this week to pastors with our rod and staff ministry, looking forward to October 19th. We're going to have a conference down in Titusville, Florida. That's down below Daytona. If you know any pastors, your pastor, send me their email. I'll put them on the list, or tell them about it. Let them send me the email, whatever works for you. Or if you just know a guy in the neighborhood, let me know. I'll send him stuff. He can always unsubscribe. He doesn't have to stay with it. But I think that it's going to be an important ministry in the lives of these men. Also, we are always talking about financial support. I hate that becomes a major issue in our discussion, but without it, we're not going to be able to continue. So if you are of a mind, if God lays it on your heart, go to the website, click the PayPal button, write a check. The address is there. You can find the address on the website and send it along. As I said, it's made out to Alternatives. That's a nonprofit corporation. And we'll be glad to hear from you. There was a lot of stuff going on this week. I produce an email every Saturday. I send one of these out, and if you're on the mailing list, you get them. And they try to give you some idea of the kinds of things that we're going to be talking about this week. I mentioned the problems that are having on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. I mentioned Glenn Beck and his departure from reality, from everything he's ever stood for. I talked a little bit about the solution to the moral problems in America. We've got all kinds of ideas as to what they are. I want to suggest to you a very basic concept that we threw out, thinking that it didn't matter, and that's probably what our problem is. I talk about the signs that people are seeing everywhere. On the back of the web of the email, there's a picture of a church at night with a flying saucer over top. It's just like every time you turn around, whether it's blood moons or any of these other kinds of things, charismatics, not them. I'm talking about other kinds of people who are seeing mysterious clouds in the sky, lights over Russia, just all kinds of things that are happening. What do they mean? Do they mean anything? Do we care? Heard just this week that Rabbi Kahn has a new prophecy. The last one didn't work. He's got a new one. I can't wait to hear what it is. I want to talk to you and give you my impression of the political debates so far. I really think that they're not much above a food fight at the moment. There's even talk about bringing Romney back in, and that's from the Republican leadership. They're just a little bit tired of everything that's going on. The migrants running around Europe have become a major problem. Have you seen some of the pictures? Have you gone online? I've forgotten what country it was in, but it was a French bus that they trashed. They got on the bus, they opened the stuff underneath, they just threw everybody's belongings all up and down the highway. Europe is starting to shut down their borders. He said these people are just out of control. And then I wrote to the pastors this week a couple paragraphs to kind of stimulate a discussion. about a new doctrine. It's not as new as you might think, but it's new. It's just recently come out in the last 10 years, perhaps. If you listen to Christian radio, especially in the Wilmington, North Carolina area, and around the country, there's a broadcast that's, I guess, popular. The fellow's name, I think, is Steve Brown. Have you ever heard him? Got a gravelly voice. Sounds like he's been smoking cigarettes all his life, which he has. Cigars, I take that back. He's a proponent of this doctrine, this philosophy that Andy Stanley is now projecting. Tullian Tavigian has bought into this theological concept or construct, and it's not a healthy thing. And I'll talk to you about that as we go along. Phone number is available. The lines are open, as they say. I've tested it again tonight. It did work for me. 843-732-0249. But if you have the website in front of you and you're watching me on the video, you already know what that number is. If you would like to call it, if you have a question or comment, that would not be out of the ordinary or wrong for you to do. Have you been watching these debates? They are front and center in pretty much every discussion of news or even non-news that you can think of. This last debate that CNN had, it was interesting to me because I don't get cable. And I went online to CNN.com thinking that they would show me something. They showed the whole debate. They kept saying you need to go to your thing and put in your account number for your provider or this thing's going to stop, but it never did. I think they're getting the handwriting on the wall. They're starting to see how this is going. People are shutting off their cable TV. I just had Time Warner call me this week twice, and I told them the same thing both times. I don't have cable. I don't want cable. It's too expensive for what you get, and I don't want your phone. They charge $20, is it, or something for internet phone, free long distance. I have T-Mobile. They'll give that to me for nothing. These cable companies are in trouble, I suppose. I don't know. Anyway, we're hearing all about these people, and I think some of them, perhaps most of them, and there's about like 16 or 18 of Republicans, I think they're all trying, for the most part, to be serious. But I don't think the media is going to let them do it. Donald Trump is sucking all the oxygen out of the room, and the questions revolve around what he said or what somebody else said about somebody's looks or somebody's wife or something of that nature. They're not asking serious questions. I think that the Rubios and the Carsons and the Fiorinos and the Cruzes and the Ron Pauls are smarter than the average. I think they've got a lot more going for them that's substantive and serious. Christie and Kasich are just more clever. The others have important points to make, but people don't really want to hear from them. Huckabee, Bush, Santorum, Jindal. Nobody really wants to hear from these people. Rick Perry is out. Or if you're keeping score, that's the second time. And I think that Huckabee's going to be gone, and I think that Christie's going to go away, and Jindal's going to go away, and Santorum might even go away. Didn't the last time, but there's a lot more people out there, and the money just goes so far. You have to have the money. You've got to have a bus ticket, if nothing else, and you've got to have people on the ground, and you've got to have press people, and you've got to be able to get in front of a camera and all of that sort of thing. So we're really in the early stages. We'll start to see how this sifts out today. This weekend, the big discussion was, do you think that Obama's a Christian? Got Carson on some talk show talking about electing a Muslim, and I laugh at that because I lived through a time when a Catholic couldn't be elected president. Remember that? Jack Kennedy broke that mold. But there was a big push and philosophy about Catholics. No, we don't want a Catholic president. Why? Well, he'll take orders from the Pope. Well, that was the sophomoric answer. The more legitimate answer is like a Muslim being president or something of that, or Hillary. You want people who philosophically, at their heart, in their soul, believe in the fundamental principles that this country stood on and was founded upon. And the Catholics don't. The Catholic Church does not. And the socialists do not. You know, you go through all of this. The Muslims do not. So you really don't want to have to fight that battle along with everything else. Anyway, I heard tonight coming home from church, our Secretary of State is over, I think, in Germany or someplace, and talking about the refugees, and it made me think about our Iran deal. You know, we have a deal with Iran which is now law, and we're watching Iran grow bolder. You did notice that even before the treaty, as it was called, but it really isn't, even before this thing was ratified or even came up for a vote, Iran was already bad-mouthing us, already condemning us. They'd already announced they found a big cache of uranium they didn't know they had. It's just, it's in your face. And apparently we don't care. Russia has sold her a missile defense system, at least one that we know of. We've learned about Russian ships, I told you. They continue to run interference in the Persian Gulf so that Iran can deliver Scud missiles to Yemen. In the news this week, there was real serious discussion about the threat that these Scud missiles have or present to Saudi Arabia, to the oil fields, other kinds of things. Iran has cozied up to Russia. One of their guys went to Russia, not allowed to travel. The world agreed he couldn't do it. He did it anyway. And that's how this deal finally came back around. And, the world is a crazy thing. You give a maniacal bully superior weapons, and then you watch what he does. Iran wants Iraq. They believe Iraq belongs to them. Always have. Ancient Persia. They want Saudi Arabia. They want the whole Muslim community. They want to dominate the world. How do you mollify people like that? Well, the truth is you cannot. You have to limit their ability, or you have to take them out. The Pope is in Cuba. He landed yesterday, I think it was, or today, maybe it was yesterday, Friday. He'll be here on Wednesday, and our president is trotting out a band of merry men and women to the tarmac to be the greeting party. Have you heard about this one? The Pope is coming to America, and we are represented by the president and by other elected officials and muckety-mucks, and he has invited, as part of the welcoming party, a homosexual Anglican bishop. In your face, Francis. That's what he's saying. He's also invited a social activist nun. She's a big shot in the Catholic social justice lobby. These are people who just go around the countryside rallying the troops and having these demonstrations and trying to get everything the Roman Catholic Church does not stand for. On the religious front, we've got Israel continuing to celebrate. I told you last week they're in their high holy days. Last Monday, Tuesday was Rosh Hashanah, their new year. This week, Monday, Tuesday, they do a sundown kind of a thing. It's Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. This is the day when the Mosaic Law required that the high priest of Israel would go into the Holy of Holies He only did that one day a year. And he would take the blood of a lamb that was slain, and he would sprinkle the blood on the mercy seat of God in the Holy of Holies. And he did that every year for the sins of the people. All year long, they were sacrificing, they were doing penance, they were living under the law, they were doing all the religious behaviors, and all of that was covered. All of that was covered up so that God did their sin, so that God did not have to judge them. And on this one day of the year, God would then take that sin away. God has not taken that sin away since 70 A.D. Long time. A couple thousand years. What are they doing? Well, they were required by God to embrace their Messiah, the Lord Jesus Christ, whose sacrifice on the cross was that blood sacrifice of the Lamb of God. And that blood was offered on the mercy seat of God in heaven. Redemption. Not atonement, covering up. Redemption. Sin was taken off the table. You do know that, right? Israel doesn't know that. They are going through this ritual every year, and when this is done, they'll next Wednesday, I think, Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere in there, they will start the Feast of Tabernacles, which I think runs 7 or 10 days. So we have the end of September and the beginning of October are always the high holy days. Several years ago, I told you about the trumpet. They have special trumpet blasts, and it's a big deal. Well, Jews like to go up on the Temple Mount during this time and pray. Up on the Temple Mount is the Mosque of Omar. You know, this the Mosque of what is it? Al-Aqsa, whatever this thing. It's a big Muslim temple thingy. Well, it sits over top of this rock. Now, in Muslim lore, the rock is what Muhammad's horse catapulted from when he went into heaven to establish Islam. But it's really, Jews believe, the rock upon which Abraham sacrificed Isaac. The Temple Mount was where the temple was. These are all important issues. But nobody but Muslims are allowed to pray on the Temple Mount. Jordan has control of the Temple Mount, organizational control. Israel has police control. It's a very untenable situation, and it has just been escalating for the last couple of weeks. It's going to continue. Hopefully it'll end at the end of these high holy days, but it's becoming a mess. Here at home we have our own mess. We have Kim Davis. Kim Davis is a county clerk in Kentucky. She's also a member of a Oneness Pentecostal church there. You know T.D. Jakes, he's a Oneness Pentecostal. They don't believe in the Trinity. You didn't know that? Yeah, you did. Because you're a faithful listener, and you know these things. They don't believe in the Trinity. It's called a oneness doctrine. God represents himself in three different persons, but never at the same time. He is the Father, or he is the Son, or he is the Holy Spirit. That's the way they do it. That's not Christian doctrine. Ask Dr. Carson if they thought Obama was a Christian, or was it Donald Trump, or somebody. You know, Christian is as Christian does. If you don't believe Christian doctrine, can you be a Christian? Can you be a Muslim and not believe Muslim doctrine? Can you be a Catholic and not believe Catholic doctrine? Well, yeah, you can do that. You know, that's just, I don't know. It's so basic. She has convictions against participating in these same-sex unions. She's the clerk. She has to fill out the application, sign, do all that. And she doesn't want to do that. She went to jail. Now she's back, and other people are doing that in her office. But I read something, and I'm not quite sure what it is. She's going around apparently and eliminating her name from the official form. You know, she's the elected clerk, and her name's on everything. She's taking her name off. And now there are legal types that are saying she can't do that. I just wish she'd leave well enough alone. But she has convictions. It's like the bakers. They won't bake the cake, or, you know, the pizza maker, or whatever it might be. But my question becomes, if you were a bus driver and you had a charter, and that charter was to take a group of people to Washington, D.C. To demonstrate in a rally in support of, call it same-sex union, or just call it something you don't believe in, would you drive that bus? Or would you say, I'm not driving that bus? What if you were driving buses in New Jersey, charter buses, you worked for this company, and they got a contract to take people to Atlantic City so they could gamble? This big business in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. People pay, well, this is 25 years ago, they pay $15 for a round-trip ticket to Atlantic City from wherever. And when they get to Atlantic City, they were given $10 worth of chips and a $5 meal ticket. It didn't cost them anything. The bus company was making money, and these people were getting the free, and the casinos wanted you to come to their place. Everybody, would you do that? Or would you drive buses to an Indian reservation in Rhode Island so people could play bingo, gamble? Can't do that in New York, New Jersey. But you could. Would you drive a limo for a bunch of guys at a bachelor party, knowing full well what they're going to do? How about if you were a checkout clerk at a convenience store that sold smutty magazines? Or maybe you worked in a bookstore, Barnes and Noble. They sell smut too, you know. Magazines and books. There's some really, really raunchy books in bookstores. You didn't know that? Oh. We have selective convictions on a lot of different things. And you can go through a list. You buy a lottery ticket. I know preachers that buy lottery tickets. Preach against gambling. Preach against the vices. Buy a lottery ticket. Well, you know, it's just that I'm just having fun. Okay? But I'm not making your pizza. It just wonders me. I read an article this week that fascinated me. You know, the world continues to worry about burning fossil fuels because it's going to release all of these chemicals into the air, and it's going to destroy the ozone layer, and then the sun is going to get hotter on us, and planet's going to heat up, and as it does, the Antarctica and the Arctic ice caps are going to melt, and the seas are going to rise, and the coastal areas are going to flood. I mean, we're just going to have chaos. A Science magazine came out this week with a new study. The magazine is called Science Advances. And it says the new study says, quote, we could burn all the world's coal and oil tomorrow, and the seas would rise 8 centimeters by the end of this century. An increase so slow that people would have plenty of time to compensate. 8 centimeters. And by the end of the millennium, I think it would be about 24 feet or something like that. How far away from the ocean do you have to get before your elevation is higher than that? guess it would depend. I'm living in Summerville, South Carolina. We're about 25 miles from the ocean, and it's all uphill, pretty much, from Charleston to where I am. And I think I'm about 50 feet above sea level. When I was in Wilmington, North Carolina, outside our church, they had painted the elevation on a manhole cover. It was like 30-some feet. We were maybe 3 miles from the ocean. And I know things vary. But what if we lost, I don't know, 20 miles of oceanfront property? Most of us wouldn't be affected by that. But they're saying that you could do this, you could burn everything we got. And it would take hundreds of years before you would even have to consider making some sort of adjustment. And in those hundreds of years, you'd make the adjustments, whatever it was. It's an amazing thing. In the presidential debates this week, they spent a considerable time discussing the social problems in our society. I want to talk about that a little bit later in the program tonight. But this is also a popular topic on some of the daytime TV talk shows and such. Date rape and teen pregnancies and abortion and drugs and violence in the home and on the street. Bullying and all of it. And when you listen to these people, the solutions are all over the map. Some are even good, but the vast majority of them miss the mark. They miss the one important element that would make the biggest difference in our life as a culture. 75 years ago, American society did not have the level or the variety of social problems we see today. Did you know that? 75 years ago. I'm 72 years old. That makes it about 1940, 75 years ago. They didn't have this problem. Same-sex unions didn't have this problem. Marijuana, heroin, LSD didn't have these problems. Young men, 14, 16, 18, 25, roaming the streets in gangs, killing people, robbing, raping, didn't have that. Does anybody wonder why? The truth is, everybody knows why. Everybody knows why. They just don't want to talk about it. They don't want to accept the reality. What do? Mental disorder. You have a mental illness. That's what your problem is. Or it's somebody else's problem. They did this to you. Well, maybe they did. We're going to talk about it a little bit later on. Just this week, toward the end of the week, an article popped up. Our government, President Obama gets the blame, but our government is now set to deport 12 Iraqi refugees. You are watching these refugees running up and down the countryside over in Europe and so forth, aren't you? Well, we have refugees here. Here are 12 Iraqi refugees that came across the Mexican border illegally. And the government wants to send them back home. Now, these are not the people who are robbing, raping, and pillaging the communities they live in. These are not members of gangs. This is not like the man in San Francisco, was it, that shot the girl on the boardwalk? He'd been deported 6 times. He's still here. Sanctuary city. It's not that kind of a thing. These are 12 people who showed up with sponsors once they got here, with American citizens vouching for them, with people ready to give them productive jobs in our society. What did these 12 do that our government wants them to go away and wants to continue letting these other people come in unchecked? They're Christians. They're called Chaldeans over in Iraq. They have family here. Their history goes back to the Apostle Paul, a continuing history of Christianity in the region. The United States Justice Department has indicted their attorney, who is also a Chaldean and has been here for a while, charging him with immigration fraud. I guess he played some part in getting them here. These folks have proven in this community where they want to settle, people like them have proven themselves hard workers, industrious, productive. This is in Detroit. They employ hundreds of people. They own convenience stores and hospitality type businesses. And our government is going to send them back to a region where upwards of 500,000 people have walked away from because of the dangers, and we're going to send them back. Muslims who hate everything we stand for. Mexican banditos, drug merchants, rapists, all kinds of people. Yeah, we'd like them to go back too if we can find them. We send them back, they come over, we send them back. They're turned loose from the jail. They don't tell anybody. Tell the people that need to know, ICE, so that they can be picked up and deported, and it just turned back into the community. Charactered Christians escaping the horrors of butchers or just banditos, poor people, drug mules, people like that. We are sympathetic to them. We are not sympathetic to these Christians. I brought with me this evening my copy of the 2016 Medicare Guide. If you are over the age of 62 and you have applied, you probably have one of these. Did you read it? Nobody reads it. It came with a notice. Not with it, but online this week if you were paying attention. Come January, Medicare Part B, that's the part you pay for. Medicare Part B is going up. Right now, we pay $104.90 per person. If you sign up for it, they take that out of your check before you ever get it. It's going to go up to $159.30. That's a 52% increase. But before you have a heart attack, it's only for 30% of the subscribers. So when you hear people talking about Medicare is going to go up this year, it's going to go up 52%. Yeah, on Bill Cosby. People who make more than $85,000 a year, yeah, they will get their fee to go up. Why they're getting Social Security in the first place is anybody's guess, but Cosby did. Multi-billionaire. When he turned 65, he signed up. They asked him about it, and he says, I paid for it. I'm getting it. So he's going to get his $20,000 or $15,000, whatever it was. He spends that in coffee. If you're married, it's $170,000. But after this year, 2016, it's all going to start going back to normal again. It just is a little blip because of a law they passed a while back that they have to do this. I don't understand it completely. But it'll subside after this year, and it'll start a more gradual increase after that. I mentioned in the email that I sent out this week that people are seeing signs everywhere. Are you seeing signs everywhere? It's like every time you turn around, they're multiplying. And Jesus talked about this stuff. He talked about the false Christs. He talked about the false prophets. He says in the last days there would be signs and wonders, so much so that even the elect would be deceived if it were possible. What that means is these signs are not fake. They're not fake. They're not from God. They're not about Christ's coming at all, but they're signs. Every third TV preacher is a prophet. Every enthusiastic show-off is a prophet. Every unusual event is some kind of a sign, and they're multiplying. So something's happening. The what? The how? The when? Those are the issues. And we'll talk about those in our next segment. Stay with us.